Speaking of Josh, Al, this is where I wanted to kind of bring that whole role play of the game conversation into the fold, because Josh Hart is expected back soon, as is Landry Shamet. And as we look at how this thing has been playing out, we look at the box score tonight. I mean, let's take a look at the minutes tonight, in particular from the guard rotation. You had 33 minutes for basically say 31 to 33 minutes for the entire starting five. Brunson 33, McCall 33, Deuce 33. You had Clarkson with 21, Tyler with 14, Mitch 24, and even Yabusele at 13. I think the question is, what happens to this rotation once Josh Hart returns, which is imminent. It is imminent. What do you think, man?
I think when he returns, man, he is obviously going to go back into that starting rotation. That's no question. There's no question about it. What that does to everybody else, I think what we would see is, I think Mike Brown might even go to an 11-man rotation for a bit. I think Yabusele will be on the outside looking in again, just because even though he had a good game tonight, he's been, out of everybody else, the least inconsistent guy on this roster. And I think you need to have Shamet back in there too, man, because he's earned his spot. And you need to give him a chance too, and you got to see if he's in that rhythm right now. But it's tough because you got to keep Kolek in there as well. He's another playmaker that you need on this roster. I don't know who loses out, man. I really don't know who loses out. I think Mike Brown might have to go 11 for a bit just to figure out what's the best lineups that he can utilize and who's going to be the most consistent guy on a night-to-night basis. What do you think, though?
This is going to be fascinating stuff. I'll say that. Because with Josh, we talked about since his absence and over the course of this losing streak, how important he is to this team. And in a lot of ways, number one, helping on the boards. We saw the Knicks losing the rebounding battle in a lot of these games. Also, as a playmaker, we've seen instances where teams are putting two on the ball and nobody's playing through the middle. That's typically Josh Hart's role. As a playmaker in transition, off of live rebounds, off of turnovers, having that guy out there that can push the ball ahead and either take it to the basket himself, take it to the basket and draw contact using the physicality, or playmaking as well. This is a potential triple-double threat that you have here in your lineup. On top of the intangibles like the grit, the heart, all of that, that's what Josh Hart brings to his team, and that has been sorely missed. But what was so interesting about all three of the guards tonight, in Deuce, in Kolek, and in Clarkson, they all showed you why their role is so important for this team. In Deuce's standpoint, you have a guy that can start. We noted through the data him and Brunson playing well together. But then, as you talked about, it's just an intangible factor of just being an aggressive shooter. You can't always say that. You can't say that with McCall, right? You can't say that sometimes with other guys. Like, having that guy out there that's not going to be afraid to let it fly and shoot it with confidence and then give you aggressive defense on the other end, that's Deuce's role. And Mike Brown spoke very highly of him just the night before in Detroit, against Detroit. Mike Brown spoke very highly of Deuce. So that's Deuce. In Clarkson, you have what you saw tonight. You got a shot creator off your bench that can make things happen out of nothing. He could turn chicken salad into chicken-ish, right? That is Clarkson for you, and that's needed at times. But then there's Kolek, the Kolek factor. The lack of playmaking and ball handling on this team creates the need for consistent Kolek minutes. And as I said, especially to play with the second unit, which is now, not now, it's been last year, Karl Anthony Towns' unit. You have to stagger the Brunson and Towns lineups if they are not going to be a cohesive unit together. So if you have Towns running his second unit, you got to run him. You got to run him with a floor general.
That's right.
That is why this thing is fascinating. I think, we did see this team at full strength fairly recently. And how did Brown go with the rotations? It was Deuce and Clarkson as the first guards, and Tyler kind of having to carve out the remnant minutes. And I think that's still going to, like, how it's typically going to be. But also, on some nights, maybe it's McCall that takes a seat in the fourth quarter.
Interesting.
Maybe it's McCall. But I do think they will start with Clarkson and Deuce still getting the lion's share of the bench guard minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I just wonder how that plays out from a playmaking standpoint when they play the better teams.
It's
especially
tough
with
because
especially with Cat.
It's tough because outside of the play too, like both of them have played, and Deuce has played better than Clarkson, but Clarkson still offers you something that you can't just bench him for an extended amount of time. Like, and the other thing too is like Deuce. We know what Deuce's value is: defense, shooting. Clarkson, outside of the shot creation, you just did sign him. You can't be sitting both the guys you just signed this offseason unless they're that awful. And Clarkson hasn't been that awful. Yeah, he's had some weeks, games, like sets of games where he's just not shooting the ball well, but then you get nights like this, and this is why he's a bench player, because he is inconsistent, but when he's going, man, he gives you a lot. So I just see you just need Kolek too, man, because I know you talk about Cat, but he's also great with Brunson too, man. He's also great with that starting rotation, just being another release for those guys to someone who could set them up and just allow those guys to roam. Because, look, it's a lot of work to bring the rock up, create for yourself, and create for others. That's why that's what the struggle was with Brunson last season, man. When you got into the postseason, you didn't have anybody else that could control the rock. I just don't see how Kolek is out, man. Like, I know Josh can do it. I know McCall can do it at times, like to degrees, but like the next best guy that you have on this roster right now that can play make is Kolek. So he has to get minutes. He absolutely has to get minutes. I think the least that would happen is it's a 10-man rotation, but I feel like for Shamet, like he might be the guy that suffers the most, man. Like, how many 3-point shooters do you need? Now, don't get me wrong, Shamet's awesome. He gives you a lot of energy. I do like his defense too, but he might be the guy that could be on the outside looking in, because you can't bring in Clarkson and just be like, all right, we're gonna bench Clarkson. You can't bench Deuce. You can't bench Mitch. We already know what the starting five is. Kolek needs to play. Brown's got to go 10 or 11 minutes at this point. that's what it sounds like.
That's what it's sounding like, and I have to wonder how long they, do they extend Landry's rehab process just to allow him more time to strengthen the shoulder and give more time? We'll see. That according to Ian Begley, both Landry and Hart returns are imminent. So, hey, going to be very interesting. Mike Brown is definitely going to have his hands full, but it's like you said, I think Tyler's a necessity for this team as a playmaker and as someone who is more and more comfortable with this team and running the offense and keeping them organized and scrapping defensively now. Giving you good defensive minutes. Tough choices, man.
I mean, just what are you going to do, man? Like, you're going to have no playmaking? You're just going to say, all right, man, back to Brunson, because that's essentially what you're going to do.
Right.
You're going to be right back to Brunson.
Right.
And then we're going to see exactly what happened against Detroit. We're like, why are we grinding? And then it'll be just very frustrating to watch that same thing, man. Look, when Mike Brown doesn't pull the right levers and have the right lineups out there, we'll complain. It's all good.
Yeah, he's going to get questioned at full strength. Every loss is going to get questioned.
Do you what do you think about Shamet? Do you think you putting him back out in that rotation? Is he the odd guy looking out? Because I think of all the guys, he probably is next to.
I think so.
Yabusele, man.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's at the end with Yabusele. But
and that sucks because he was playing so well, man. He had that game against Miami. Like, this is what this is the unfortunate part with injuries is that, and this is why guys like they worry when they get injured, man, because when you're out, it gives somebody else another chance to step up and get minutes and produce. And if they produce, it could mean something bad for you.
Yep.
So it sucks, man. And I hope that Landry does get playing time because he was playing so well and he was shooting the three very well. I like this energy on defense.
Yeah.
You know, there's a lot of good that Shamet brings, man, and you could certainly use that in the postseason. But you know, for guys like him, like we saw what happened last year after he came back from injury, man, it took a long time for him to get back into rhythm. I'm curious to see if he's able to get back into rhythm quickly, or if he's going to need that same amount of time again. And look, it's January now. I know you said the return is imminent, but he'll be back. What sounds like in January. Then you talk about 2 weeks in February. You get All-Star break, and then we're in the home stretch before the postseason. So like,
Yes.
is that enough time for him to get back into rhythm?